Professor Parindavasa studied physics in IIT Bombay, and she got the master degree, and then received her PhD degree from TIFR in 2006. During her PhD, she worked on optical properties of semiconductor nanoparticles. In the same year, she received the Humboldt Fellowship and later in 2008 Faculty for the Future Fellowship from the Schlumberger Foundation to conduct postdoctoral research in ultrafast nano-optics at University of Oldenburg in Germany. Since 2011, she joined as a faculty member in the physics department in 2011. Her research interests include experimental investigation of nanophotonics, ultrafast phenomena, and plasmonics. Amongst her awards and recognition are DST Young Career Award in Nanoscience and Nanotechnology, Homi Bhabha Fellowship, ACRB Power Fellowship, and Hema Ramchandran Lectureship Award in Experimental Physics. She'll be talking today the capturing the shortest moments of moments. It is my really great pleasure to introduce Parindavasa because she was my student, and from the student now she became my colleague. Now she is a renowned scientist in photonics. Let us welcome Parindavasa.
So, thank you, Professor Kundu, for kind introduction. It is my pleasure to give this talk here, and also I'm very happy because many of these basic concepts I actually learned in this institute from you. So it is, and I'm also happy that this kind of work has got a lot of recognition. Also, thank you to Professor Patwardhan and Professor Bhandarkar for this opportunity and IRCC team. So my job is to describe what these three Nobel laureates, Pierre Agostini, Ferenc Krauss, and Anne Louis did that resulted in this Nobel Prize. The work has been done relatively recently, in last before 30 years or so. Okay. So the citation says, for experimental methods that generate attosecond pulses of light for the study of electron dynamics in matter. So what is attosecond? Attosecond is 10 power minus 18 second, that is 1/1000th of a billionth of a second. So it is an extremely short duration of time. So to put this work in proper perspective, of course, we have to go back a little bit in history and see why this is so much of important. So this is also part of the citation that says new tools for exploring world of electrons inside atoms and molecules to create extremely short pulses of light. Particularly in physics, there have been less frequent years where the Nobel Prizes have been awarded to some technique or a tool. Generally, the Nobel Prize in physics is awarded to some new theory or new kind of phenomena or work done on that. But relatively few Nobel Prizes are given to techniques, and this is one of them. Also, it is one of the few Nobel Prizes where one of the Nobel laureate is a woman researcher. That also in physics is very, very rare. I mean, it has increased in last few years, but otherwise there was a gap of almost 100 years or so. Okay, so it's a very peculiar in that respect. So now as the citation says, exploring world of electrons and extremely short pulses of light. Okay, so basically the idea here is to capture some very fast motion. That is the idea. Now, when one talks about capturing motion, what comes to our mind is a camera. Okay, you take a picture, then you freeze that moment. So that is what comes to our mind. The technology of camera, of course, goes to a couple of 100 years back. But older cameras were mainly still camera. That means you cannot take a picture of a fast-moving object. Okay, a still photography was the main purpose. However, about 150 years back, Edward Muybridge came up with a technique that would resolve a motion of a galloping horse. The question was that when a horse is galloping, is there any instant of time where all four hoofs are in air, okay, not touching. And this, of course, maybe one could see it, but was to record on a camera film. So for that, what is done is that there is a shutter in front of the film which goes open and close, and the film has to move so that a fresh film gets exposed. So this has to be done faster rate than the moving horse, obviously, and the kind of speed it is required is 1/60th of a second. That is also the kind of temporal resolution human eyes provide. Okay, so that time it was at the time of industrial revolution, and people really wanted to take images of fast moving machines, very important from industrial point of view. So this work was considered very important. Maybridge himself also is a very unconventional scientist. He was a adventurer, traveler, engineer, so more of a polymorph. And he worked a lot on different photography techniques. Similar things are now, technique is also now in mobile phones, where of course the image capturing speed and processing speed are much faster than this. One can go up to 300 frames per second. But still, this is very slow now, even for many things that we are already familiar, aeroplane or fast moving car or something. So something more needs to be done. A paradigm shift came in 1940s, where instead of opening and closing the shutter, the concept of flash photography or stop photography came, where actually the shutter can remain open for a long time, but the object is illuminated for a very short period of time by a flash. Okay, so what the camera would capture depends on the duration of the flash. If there is no light, then of course it's all dark and the camera doesn't record anything. So this, because the lights could be turned on and off much faster, could give you, you could freeze a much faster motion. For example, bullet going through apple. And these are still, but this camera flash is in millisecond, microsecond region. And the motion that is relevant, or the time scales, they can go even very short. Particularly if you go to smaller and smaller object like molecules, atoms, etc., then because of the size, the speeds are high, and then the chemical reactions, etc., occur on very, very small time scale. So this is nanosecond -9, picosecond, femtosecond, and attosecond -18 comes even further. So if you compare 1 second to 1 attosecond, it is like age of universe for 1 second. So there are orders of magnitude. Okay, so it is really challenging how fast to capture this kind of motion. So since electronics also has a certain speed, so how to overcome this speed barrier, okay, or the time resolution barrier? The concept that is used here is all optical pulse generation. So basically this is a continuous light. We are familiar with light from various sources. But if there are a lot of colors, lot of different colors, and they are properly superimposed so that they add up in phase at a particular instant in time, then they will all constructively add up to add energy. But at all other times, if there are sufficient number of these, then they will interfere destructively and generate a short pulse. Now this technique is independent of any response time. It all depends that how many such light waves you have, what frequencies are there, and whether they are adding in phase or not. Okay. So with this technique, one can convert a continuous wave source, provided there is a sufficiently broad bandwidth, and they are in phase, to generate very, very short pulses of light. That is the way, of course, this coherent addition was possible only after discovery of lasers, okay, and generating so many colors from lasers, adding them in phase is all quite challenging. But now these kind of lasers are available turnkey, used for several applications. There are many groups in IIT who use this kind of lasers. And so the pulse duration kept reducing depending on the broader and broader bandwidth. And then it reached femtosecond, so that is 10 power minus 15 seconds. So with this one can see how the chemical reactions takes place, or what will be the vibration of molecules. These kind of phenomena in real time can be investigated. But what beyond? Then if you want to go beyond, then what to do? Why then stop at minus 15? Why not lower? So if you see this, one optical cycle, just one sine wave, in visible has a frequency of 10 power 15 hertz. So if you invert it, then it will become femtosecond. So with visible frequencies, what we are familiar with, you can get single, pulse on the scale of femtosecond. But if you want to go below it, then of course first you need light which is having shorter frequency than visible. Okay. You cannot generate it at visible because one optical cycle itself will be of femtosecond. So this principle works, but you need to have the right wavelengths. Now, so that is the limiting factor, because if you want to go to attosecond, then you will need UV or extreme UV, and there are no laser materials in that range which emit XUV or UV. So you need a coherent light in that region. But meanwhile, the femtosecond laser pulses which were available, they were used for many applications, and particularly in chemistry, there was a Nobel Prize awarded in 1999, M.H. Zuel, for application of these pulses in understanding how the chemical reactions take place. And also more recently in 2018, to generate very intense femtosecond pulses. Okay. Generally the pulses are very weak, but if you, as we will see in the coming slides, you really need lot of power, to break this time barrier. And that kind of technology was developed by Gerard Mourou and his student Donna Strickland. So they developed this technology in 1990, and for which they were awarded Nobel Prize in 2018. So this is another year where Nobel Prize was awarded for a technique of generating intense pulses. Arthur Ashkin was awarded Nobel Prize for also photonics application of light, that was optical tweezer. They are both on extreme, because here the light is so weak that it even doesn't destroy a living cell, and here the light is so intense that it can break an atom. Okay, so both extreme. So as we know now that you need a short light, blue or ultraviolet, extreme ultraviolet, X-ray. So this is the kind of spectrum, because 300 nanometer would correspond to 1 femtosecond. So if you want to go to attosecond, then you have to divide by 1000. So very short wavelengths. So what these numbers mean in terms of atomic physics, because that is what materials are going to be made up of. So for hydrogen atom, Bohr radius is half angstrom, and if you consider this half angstrom radius, then the perimeter and the time is like, of course this is not a true quantum mechanical picture, but the time it takes would be about 152 attoseconds. So these are the time scale on which the electronic wave packets change, which you want to see in real time. Okay, so we have moved from molecule to atom, because now we are going to smaller size, faster motion, and this is the field that binds this electron to nucleus. So this much electric field, if you apply, then it will ionize. And since electron is a charged particle, light wave has an electric field, so if you put electron in a light field, then it will acquire some energy. And if the light field has this kind of intensity, then electron will acquire so much of energy that it will ionize. So if you shine this kind of infrared light also on hydrogen atom does not absorb infrared, but still it will ionize because this electron will get so much of energy from the light field that it will just become free. So this is the principle that is used in generation of these short pulses. So this is bound electron in an atom, okay? If you want to make it free, you can provide this much of energy by shining photon and then it will ionize. But if you have sufficiently powerful light, okay, then this light field will distort the potential, okay? So the potential is like this. This is on the scale of the atom, the wavelength is very long. So this is, the potential is flat. But if you have very high intensity, then because of the light field, the potential will become like this. Now in this region, it has the barrier has become so low that electron will become free by itself, okay? So this here the light intensity is in 10 power 16 watt per centimeter square, so that it can perturb or it can modify the atomic potential and make the electron free. So these are known as tunnel ionization, or here the alteration is so much that the electron just becomes free without even tunneling. So this is above the barrier, okay? The light field even removes the barrier. So now the electron has is become free, and this is the direction of the light field. So it will move in this direction. It will gain more and more energy. But light field keeps changing sign. Okay, it was like this. Then after some time, that is the half cycle, it will become like this. So the electron that was going in this direction will turn and come back. Now when it comes back, it has acquired lot of energy from the light field. Okay, very, very high energy. And to go back into the nucleus, it has to release this energy. So it releases, it deaccelerates, and any accelerating charge particle emits electromagnetic field. So this electron emits very high amount of photon energy in a very short time. The wavelength is in XUV or X-ray region, and since it occurs in a very, very short time, this in principle can generate a short pulse. That will be in attosecond. So this is the principle on which the attosecond generation works. You do not have lasers which directly work in XUV, but you use infrared lasers which have cycle of about 1 or couple of femtoseconds, and then you ionize it, accelerate the electron, and then make it deaccelerate in a very, very short time. So that is the experimental setup. Of course, it is shown here very simply, but the experiment takes a lot of space and extremely powerful lasers. But the laser is focused in a gas jet, argon, neon, different types, or solid, liquid also is fine. And then what one sees is that these kind of pulses are seen in the very short wavelength region. This was the pioneering work of N. L. Louis done in 1980s. Actually not with femtosecond lasers, picosecond lasers. That time femtosecond intense lasers were not available because Gerard Mourou developed much later. But still she got these starting from infrared. So there is a, you are at 1 micron wavelength and you are generating 30 nanometers. So there is a huge reduction in wavelength. And this becomes a coherent source of XUV and X-rays. So that is her pioneering work. But now, okay, you have got the wavelength, but do you get a short pulse? Okay, since we have a lot of broadband sources around us, but they not necessarily generate a short pulse because that phase addition is critical. So whether you really generate them. Of course, if you start with a long pulse, picosecond pulse or a femtosecond pulse, then the pulse has a lot of optical cycles. On each optical cycle, this effect of electron going back and forth happens every half cycle. So there are a lot of electrons going, coming back. So they will all generate X-rays, but that phase relationship will be broken. So you cannot generate attosecond so easily. But if you have a very short pulse, femtosecond, a few femtosecond pulse, okay, then that kind of intensity occurs only at a one instant in a pulse, and then all the X-rays or XUV that has been generated will be in phase, and you would automatically generate a attosecond pulse. So that is the principle. Okay. But how do you really measure the shortest event? Okay. To measure an event, you need a shorter event, but if the event is itself shortest, then how do you measure it? So the way this is done in all ultra-fast sciences is to use the pulse itself, make a replica of it, okay, and then monitor effect that depends on the product. So as you scan them, if one of them is 0, then you get 0, and then when you take a product, then when they are overlapping, you get more signal. When they are absolutely overlapping, you get even more signal. So from this correlation measurement, you can get the pulse duration. Okay, that will be the ultimate proof. Just a broad spectrum is not sufficient to prove that one has generated a attosecond pulse. So there have been techniques which use a series of pulses and monitors this higher harmonic generation. Higher harmonic because you are generating light in XUV or X-ray regime when you are putting infrared. So if you have frequency, if you have wavelength of 800 nanometer, then half of it, 400 nanometer, will become second harmonic. Here you have very high number of harmonic, 15, 17, always odd. There is some physics in it, but I am not going into detail why only odd harmonics. But from this, so odd harmonics are expected, but here there is some pulse sequence used which will generate even harmonic, which will give the attosecond duration, and that is another technique known as rabbit, and Pierre Agostini developed that technique. And the more or less the last part is there are many processes which we thought were instantaneous. One of them is photoelectron emission. Light falls on a material and the electron comes out. So this was proposed by Einstein in 1905, for which he got Nobel Prize in 1921. But here the light falls and the electron comes out. This process is considered instantaneous. Actually, that is one of the failure of classical electrodynamics, because classical electrodynamics predicts that you would take a lot of time in gathering the energy and then electron will come out. But Ferenckrauss showed that actually the photoelectron coming out also takes finite interval on 20 attosecond time scale. So as such, nothing is instantaneous. And this is the part where they actually track the movement of electrons around atom. So these are the contributions. NLUEA mainly for developing this technique for generating higher harmonics or short wavelength light which can generate attosecond pulses. Pierre Agostini for generation of attosecond pulses by proper pulse sequence, and actually developing a technique that will measure the pulse duration. And Ferenckrauss also worked on similar techniques for generating attosecond pulses, but also to show that there are these finite times involved in physical processes. The experimental setups are quite big, okay? Because they require different frequencies, radiation protection, high power lasers, cooling, etc., particle detectors, wavelength detectors, etc. These nowadays are typically done in international laser centers. Even then, there are several lasers available in IIT, physics department, chemistry department, electrical engineering, mechanical, civil, where they are capable of generating this higher harmonic, though not attosecond. Okay, there is a step between attosecond and higher harmonic, so they can be used for X-ray sources. They may not generate attosecond pulses because the pulse durations to begin with are long. So that more or less brings me to the end of my talk. So in 1980s, the pulse duration were picosecond long. Now in just I think 2000 was a time when this attosecond was demonstrated. Now the shortest pulse is on the scale of 50 attosecond. Okay, so let's see how it goes. Of course, if you want to have shorter and shorter time, then first you have to have a shorter and shorter wavelength and a broad enough spectrum so that they will generate those pulses. Keeping up with the tradition of IIT Bombay, we do have courses which teach basics of these kind of processes to undergraduate students. Okay, and well, not in attoseconds. We do not have that kind of. I mean, currently that kind of facility does not exist in India. TIFR is trying to make it in Hyderabad, but at least some theoretical concepts we do teach to students. So with this, thank you for your attention.